We'll go ahead and get started early because it's not like herding cats. In fact, everybody is here and on time. And my name's Carrie Thompson. I'm the mayor here in Bloomington, and thought it would be a great idea to make the public aware of the broad implications of SB1 really across the board in communities across the state of Indiana. And so we have partners that will introduce themselves in a little while from county, from the school system, and from the business and economic development community. This is a bill that is going to impact all of us, and it is complicated, and it has been changed several times as it has moved through the House and Senate. It did get passed, so we're not here asking for your specific advocacy for or against a bill. We're here to help you understand what this bill really means and how we as leaders in the community are approaching the bill as we move forward now that we understand what's within that bill. And so the structure of today, we have Eric Reedy here from Reedy Financial. He is going to brief us on the financial implications of the bill. And then each of our partners will just give a brief introduction of themselves along with what their area of expertise is looking at related to the bill. And then we'll be taking questions from the press only today to try to keep this to an hour. We've pulled a lot of busy people together at the last minute, so we've committed to an hour-long meeting. But you can expect that we will be having more community conversations about this as our plans roll out. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Reedy to brief us on the bill itself.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Eric Reedy with Reedy Financial Group. We work with cities, towns, counties, schools, lots of local units of government across the state. We're a strategic member of Accelerate Indiana Municipalities. We've worked with them closely on the bill throughout the legislative session, showing impacts to each of its members, whether it be a large city or a small town. As the mayor mentioned, this bill has very far-reaching impacts. Originally, this was House Bill 1402. The provisions in that bill were, hard to believe, far worse. That bill actually included full personal property elimination, which would have just been catastrophic financially on local units of government in the state of Indiana. This one's more manageable, but it still has far-reaching impacts. Whenever you talk about property tax, you kind of have to begin with the circuit breaker and how a property tax bill is computed. I don't think that was given much attention during the legislative session, and I'd be happy to discuss what the circuit breaker is, the tax caps, and how that impacts a tax bill. In my opinion, giving property tax relief was done back in, or really big property tax relief was done back in the special session in 2008. But to get into the specifics of Senate Bill 1, basically what happened is about a month and a half ago, House Bill 1402 was rolled into Senate Bill 1. And from there, the Ways and Means Committee met a couple of times, and the original House Bill 1402 got shrunk into what we see today. So I know that in a packet that I received, there's a memo that we prepared that looks like this, and we just summarize the different parts. And to begin with, there's deductions to your property assessments that will have major impacts on what taxpayers pay on their tax bill, and then conversely what local units of governments receive in property taxes. And the very first one is the homestead deduction. And we have two different calculations here. We have it on a $100,000 home and a $500,000 home. And one thing that you can see is we're showing what that current deduction is in 2025 on a $100,000 home, $67,500, $217,500 on a $500,000 home. But you can see when this bill gets fully implemented in 2031, the deduction on the $100,000 home is slightly less, but on a $500,000 home, it's much more. So that's something to keep in mind. Whenever you talk property taxes and how it's going to impact the taxpayer and the overlapping units, you have to do a parcel-by-parcel analysis. That's one of the things that we excel in. We've done for AIM, we do for the city. So to fully understand this, we would have to do something like that, and we're currently in the process of doing that for the city and many communities around the state. On the next page, this is a brand new deduction, and it's for 2% properties, and a 2% property is any non-homestead residential property, so rentals, multifamily, things like that. And then, this isn't applicable in the city, but out in the country, ag parcels, agricultural parcels, and then long-term care facilities got grouped into the 2%. And these are all circuit breaker terms that I mentioned. So this is a brand new deduction on assessed value, 33% on 2% properties. And that'll be fully phased in by 2032. So that's another one. And what this does is it'll reduce the city, the schools, the counties, every overlapping unit's tax base is what these deductions do. So the question is, how much are these deductions? And we know for the city in particular that the deductions on 1% and 2% equals $1.5 billion. And the net assessed value right now is about $5.5 billion. So big numbers is what we're talking about. And then the last of the deductions deal with the 3%, which is business, increased, they call it de minimis for personal property. Currently, that exemption is $80,000. So if you have a piece of equipment, you get to exempt the first $80,000. That goes to $2 million. So for most small business, all their personal property will be exempt from property taxation. And then you have removal of the 30% floor. So under current law, business personal property can't go below 30%. Under the new bill, any new assets will have no floor. So that's going to be a big impact on any new assets. So that one's going to take a while to rev up, but we need to do planning and things of that nature to see what the impact is. On the 3%, if you have a diverse community of different tax bases, which fortunately this community has, the impact won't be as severe. We know of some communities out there. Whiting, Indiana is probably the worst. 75% of their tax base is personal property. They're going to have catastrophic impacts. Some notes that we have on the 1%. Properties, elimination of fixed portion of deduction, the homestead, will disproportionately benefit higher gross AV homesteads. Taxpayer impact is regressive, shifts more of the burden to low AV homesteads. And that's because of what I showed you on the first page. On the $100,000 house, the deductions this year and 6 years out when you have full deduction, about the same. But on the much higher dollar house, $500,000, it's a very big increase in the deduction. On the 2%, that's a brand new deduction. Benefit of 2% taxpayers, though, is going to be negligible because of the circuit breaker that's already in place. Most communities, the overall tax rate is over $2, and if you're over $2, your 2% properties are capped. So there's not going to be much of an impact on overlapping. The impact is going to be out in the unincorporated areas. And one thing I would mention, since Bloomington, for example, is going to lose $1.5 billion in assessed value, similar things are going to happen out in the country, in these unincorporated areas. Tax rates are going to go over $2. out there because of the they're going to have a 33% deduction, but the tax rates are going to go up. So again, parcel by parcel is very much needed. Business personal property exemption will benefit small business because of the de minimis that we talked about, increasing from 80,000 to 2 million. Manufacturing, this should say on current assets, you won't see much of a benefit. It's the new assets that'll come in later where you'll have the big benefit on business personal property. The best method to project impacts is parcel by parcel analysis. You got to look at every parcel to see what the impacts are. Okay, in like the very last few minutes of the session, new credits were added to the bill, and the credits are far-reaching. And what a credit is you calculate your tax bill, you take out all the deductions, you come up with your net tax assessed value, divide that by 100, take it times the tax rate, that's your tax bill. And then you look at the circuit breaker, for homestead 1%, and then that's the max you can pay. These are applied after that. Credits are applied after you figure the tax bill. So these are just things that the legislature, the General Assembly decided to add late in the game. So again, these are things we're going to have to study and see what the ramifications are. Again, we provided every city in the state, and we looked at some county impacts. We did not model the credit portion yet, but it's $150 for all homeowners that are greater or that are 65 or older. Get a $150 credit after the tax bill is computed. $125 for disabled homeowners, $250 for disabled veterans. And then the big kicker that's going to have the most ramification, because this will apply to anybody with a homestead, the lesser of 10% or $300 of the gross tax bill. And then in bold we put if other credits above apply, this credit is applied before all credits. So this is something that needs to be studied. That's going to have some big ramifications. The other deductions will as well. Now, the legislature did put in some replacement, and that is with local option income tax. So instead of property tax, you're going to be looking at replacing that with income tax. Now, I would say that in 1973, when the property tax freeze was implemented, the state implemented sales tax to replace that. When the circuit breaker law was implemented, the school general fund came off the tax roll. County welfare came off the tax roll. The city's old pension funds came off the tax rolls. Well, guess what funded that? An increase to the sales tax. This time around, it's going to be relieved somewhat by local income tax. Now, we've done some projections, and the city is better off than most. But it's going to not receive as much local option income tax as it is the property taxes coming off at full implementation. So what's going to happen is the current system is eliminated. Currently, the county has about a 1% existing rate that goes to the city general fund, the county general fund, the townships, the libraries, so on and so forth. And then it gets replaced. There's public safety, there's economic development, all those go away. The only one that's left is this 0.003% special rate. Everything else goes away. Your current rate's 2.14. It'll now just be 0.003 is what survives, and in its place, these other rates come in. So the county can do up to a 1.2% lit just for county purposes, a 0.4% for fire and EMS. Some of that would go to the city, some of it would go to Ellettsville, some of it would go to the unincorporated area fire providers. Up to 0.2% to municipal units for any lawful purpose. So, for example, that's the only one that like schools would participate in to absorb their loss from this property tax bill. The combination of the above rates cannot exceed 1.7%. One of the things in this bill is any city which or town under 3,500, the county has to approve that. I believe you have one, Steinsville, so the county's going to have to compute what they need. Ellettsville's big enough to do their own.
Maybe
I
hit
could-
the highlights and
Okay.
we can start.
Okay. I think I've hit enough.
I think you've.
Yeah. Okay.
If anybody in the audience is still tracking everything, then
Yeah.
you probably have a tax degree. And I want to really thank Eric for being here and helping to explain the complexities of this bill. And we do, Desiree, do we have more of these handouts? No, but we can. Yeah, we can get them out to you. We are heartened to see how many people are here with us. Let me just jump off from where Eric is to talk from the administration's perspective at the city. Obviously, this is all brand new information. We do have to do a property by property evaluation to determine what exactly our plan can be and where we're going to go. And so I know most of you here have the questions, you know, does this mean significant cuts at the city? Does it mean that we absolutely are asking for new lit? The answer is we really need to carefully look at this, but we cannot do more with less. I can tell you that my administration has been laser focused on making sure that we are running a really efficient government. And so if we have less, we won't be able to do as much. And that is very clear to me. So we have to, the great thing is we have the most creative team in the state. So I know that we will be able to do incredible things with what we do have, and we will be looking at how we can provide the services that Bloomington needs, absolutely focused on basic city services first, and then being able to ensure that we can do many of these quality of life pieces that we've all come to really count on in the city. I want to be clear that when our federal administration speaks about tax cuts, what they're talking about is really saving money for the very wealthy. And this bill is really mimicking that. So our state is falling in line. And every time any taxes are increased, what I hear from the people of Bloomington, all of whom got our property taxes in our mailboxes last week, is, wow, this hurts. And I know there are plenty of people in Bloomington that are okay and don't understand that the taxes that have increased are hitting the people on fixed incomes and people who don't have high wealth, but they very much are. And so I take that very seriously when we're talking about potential lit increase, and we are going to have to make ends meet at the city. This is a moment where we have, I believe, never received as many calls from the private sector, from our nonprofits, asking, can you all fill the gaps that we are now missing because of the HUD cuts, because of the social services cuts at the federal level? And the answer increasingly is no. And we don't even know if we can do what we have been doing. So this is a moment that we all have to pull together. One of our ask of our colleagues at the county is it's very concerning to us that the lit is now, just the city's lit in this bill is now approved by the county. The city no longer has control over that. And so that's going to take a kind of partnership that we've never had before. I know we have great partners at the county, but that was an extremely disappointing piece of this bill. I'm going to hand it over to Peter Iverson from our county council.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Iverson. I am President Pro Tem of the Monroe County Council. As many of you know, county councils in all of Indiana's counties hold fiscal authority, and that's it. Today I want to talk to you about how concerned the county is and how seriously we are taking the analysis that needs to be done. The first thing I'll point out is in this room, we have the county assessor, the county treasurer, and the county auditor. The entire financial team is in this room. That is how seriously we are taking this. I will also point out that tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the Nat U. Hill room, the Long-Term Finance Committee of the Monroe County Council will be meeting. Financial Solutions Group will be providing a county-oriented analysis. That is going to be, again, tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the Nat U. Hill. Councilmember Liz Feidel is on that body, and she's in the room today as well. The county is concerned, and we are taking this seriously. I do not have in-depth analyses that I'm going to go through line by line and talk to you about what the impact is going to be on your individual tax bills. But what I do want to talk about is three things. Number one, the way that the county deals with inflationary pressures is through our maximum growth levy quotient, or the MLGQ. We are watching this pretty carefully. During the way that this bill walked through the legislature, we were pretty concerned that there was going to be some drastic changes to that. We're somewhat cautiously optimistic the way it turned out, but we're keeping our eye on that. We are very concerned about the way that the federal tariffs are continuing to play not only short-term but long-term havoc on our local economy, and so that's going to be an important thing for us to look at. Clearly, local income tax is a major topic. I completely agree with Mayor Thompson that this is going to involve a higher level of collaboration. I will point out that the Chamber of Commerce came to the County Council meeting last night and gave a very prescient comment that we are all one community. Our kids go to the same schools. They play in the same soccer teams. They play in the same baseball teams. We are going to figure this out. And I think it's really instructive that we're all sitting at the same table. The last point that I'll make, and these 3 points that are going to be talked about tomorrow at 11, is property tax. We are deeply, deeply concerned about this. Tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue to the county. We need to do some more in-depth analysis, and clearly the players that are going to be helping us with that analysis are in this room. So let me conclude by saying the county is working very closely with the elected officials who are in this room, as well as Financial Solutions Group and our partners at the Association of Indiana Counties to do the analysis quickly so that we can get information to you so we can assess the impacts. We remain in the County Council optimistic that we are going to be able to get through this together. We think that we have the right people in place to get through this together. And I want to leave you with that optimism that this is a major reorganization of the way that we do fiscal policy. However, there are the right people in the right positions to handle this situation right now. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to hand the mic to Hope.
Sure. Hi, thank you, Peter. So I'm Hopi Stassberg. I am the City Council District 3 representative, and I'm also City Council President this year. And I think that my words right now, so City Council is the fiscal and the legislative body, so our role in budgeting is a little bit different than at the county level, but we still have to approve budgets. And so we as a body are still facing this kind of unknown place where we're not entirely sure exactly the details of what this means for our bottom lines. It is, as Peter said, kind of a reconsidering a redistribution of how local government ends up being funded. And we're all going to be faced with this tough choice of how to cut, what to cut, or how to increase revenues. And what that's going to look like to people. As has already been illustrated, this is definitely in terms of tax benefit, of greater benefit. The higher income level you're at, the more your house is worth. If If local income tax structure gets changed, it definitely penalizes working poor more than anybody else. And if you rent, I'm not sure that you get much benefit from this at all, because I don't think rent is going to be decreased just because the property taxes are decreased. So there's this really kind of big calculus on my mind. How are we going to manage this situation in terms of still being able to provide essential city services, having minimal impact to things that make this community run, and still not highly penalizing our population? You know, it's about trying to have as little negative fiscal impact on our residents as possible and still provide the services that are really necessary. So the next few months will definitely be interesting. And I won't say that I look forward to it, but I will say that I do look forward to the cooperation and collaboration that I think will be in this community between all of the units that depend on property taxes and thus have to respond in this moment. Thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is Jen Pearl, and I'm president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. We're a nonprofit that serves all of Monroe County in attracting and working to grow quality jobs for the community. In economic development, employers and communities are currently in a war for talent. Thriving communities have great schools, great housing, great services, great infrastructure, and those are the things that employers look for when they're choosing a place to land and grow, because that's what attracts people, and those are their workers. However, we've seen statewide that our population, our workforce has been flattening and aging due to an older population as well as dropping birth rates. So we see SB1 is complicating this situation, and it's really for 4 reasons. First of all, if governments have to shift to local property taxes, from property to local income taxes, that's not growth-oriented. The Tax Foundation recently came out with statements on how income taxes are generally more distortive, and they can influence the decisions of current and prospective residents. At the same time, business retention and attraction requires all these great things I mentioned. So remember, we're competing for people, and that makes it hard to do that. Number 2, local income taxes are paid where you live, not where you work. 18% of our workforce actually commutes in from outside of Monroe County, and that's according to Hoosiers by the Numbers. Number 3, reduction to the business personal property tax, we think will have a mixed impact. So maybe good for smaller businesses, but we are concerned that it'll disincentivize their investments so that they get above that $2 million threshold. Eliminating the 30% business personal property floor, on one hand, could incentivize automation because people may want to buy more, automotive equipment. That can affect jobs, although that can also be a solution for workforce challenges. So really, the challenge there is how do you upskill your workforce? And then finally, a more complex tax system makes it harder to sell Indiana. When we're trying to promote the state, it depends on where you go inside the state. So what can be done? Disruption is difficult, but as everyone has said here, it's a time for innovation. We know how to pull together. There are still aspects of the bill where there's time to advocate for those to change, before they come into effect. Businesses, if you're listening, please know that you're not alone. There are many resources here to help you. And then for our fellow community leaders, we look forward to working with you all as we try to figure out what to do together.
Hi, I'm Jody Madeira. I'm your brand new county commissioner as of January 1st of this year, and what a year to come into office. We have to talk really plainly about this because although SB1 was signed into law in Indianapolis, its effects will be felt most keenly at the community level. I'm also reminded time after time that there is nothing called SB1 that has ever been good for Hoosiers. At first, SB1 seems really appealing. Who doesn't love a good property tax reduction? But there are so many devils in these details. It's not even a good property tax reduction. It's just enough to allow state legislators to say that they cut property taxes. This regressive bill doesn't help Hoosiers that don't own homes. Because the state legislators who supported SB1 were too cowardly, and yes, I choose that word purposefully, to do their jobs, local governments are going to have to raise local income taxes to make up deficits. We're not going to have a choice. SB1 comes at the worst possible time. Federal and state funding for social and security safety net programs like housing and substance use recovery has been pulled or drastically reduced, or its future is radically uncertain. We are facing tariffs and almost certain economic hardship on multiple levels. It comes at a time when our wages aren't keeping up with inflation, and our residents are having a hard enough time meeting their needs as costs for necessities rise across the board. It also comes at a time when federal and state dollars are being pulled for critical programs like education, secondary education, post-secondary education, housing assistance, and public health services. It's going to be very challenging to create a high quality of life, opportunity, growth base that make this country and this county such a great place to live. So now for the numbers. Economists estimate a $1.4 billion shortfall for local governments when this bill is fully phased in. Analysts project shortfalls for our county of $9.9 million in 2026, $11.8 million in 2027, and $15.5 million in 2028. So the question is, how are we going to maintain and grow service levels as they're going to need to grow with this shortfall? Plugging budget gaps with local income taxes could cost Hoosier families an estimated $1,250 more per year, and that local income tax bill is going to arrive whether you own a home or whether you rent one. This burden will hurt wage earners, renters, and younger families the hardest. None of us ran for a local elected office to administer scarcity. This is not our problem. It is a problem we are facing, a crisis we are facing that is not of our making, to which we are rising. Yet by passing SB1, state legislators, in other words, deputized us to do this difficult work that they refuse to do, hurting our residents, pricing the public services we value, and choosing who has to pay for them. This event is a really important first step towards meeting that challenge, but we can only do it if residents stay informed, engaged, and insist that tax relief never become code for diminished opportunity and diminished community. Over the coming months, our county and city officials will assess budget scenarios, we will hold hearings, and yes, we will discuss new local income tax rates. We need you guys to show up, to ask the hard questions, to hold us accountable, and to tell us what matters most to you. Because in the end, again, SB1's impact won't be measured in abstract data coming out of the State House. It will be measured in our lives, in the quality of the education our kids receive. It will be measured in the response times of the ambulance or the fire truck that comes when we call. It will be measured in the social services we provide for community residents who need a helping hand. And it will also be measured in the vibrancy of the community that we choose to build together. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Spoonmore, President, CEO of the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate everybody's remarks and being able to participate on this panel. Look, these are extraordinary times. This is unprecedented. I happen to be a former county council member, so I certainly sympathize with a lot of the heartburn that our elected officials are having to deal with right now. This is not business as usual for Indiana and our communities. As Mr. Reedy mentioned earlier, businesses, particularly small businesses, the small businesses that I represent, Chamber of Commerce has about 900 members, about 80% of which are small businesses. And when I talk about small businesses in that regard, I'm talking about employers with 10 or fewer employees. Now, we also have larger employers that are members, corporations like Cook, Monroe County School Corporation, Indiana University, a lot of nonprofits. So it's a very diverse group of membership, but our bread and butter continues to be small businesses, privately owned, and they, through this legislation, really do stand to benefit the most. The legislation raises the minimum threshold for filing business property taxes from $80,000 to $2 million, phased in over a couple of years. This will exempt the vast majority of Hoosier businesses from any property tax. And so I'll just kind of put this into context of what this means as it relates to individuals as well. A business with $80,000 in personal property would be paying about $2,400 per year in property taxes. A business with $2 million would pay $60,000 per year. So the new minimums will radically reduce business taxes in Indiana. And for context, a firm with $80,000 or less in personal property might be a small law firm or a plumber. Firm with $2 million would be a large restaurant or dental office. At the high end, these firms will each get a tax cut equivalent to the total cuts to maybe 400 middle-class families. So, and that's information that Michael Hicks put in a recent Indy Star article. I would encourage everybody to read that. But, you know, that kind of tells you what we're dealing with here. It's a shift where businesses are benefiting, and it's now locals are going to have to make the decision on if they want to raise income taxes on working families and people that are working in our communities. So, you know, I think the knee-jerk reaction sometimes that communities may have is just say, look, we've got the ability to raise taxes, let's do it. But I would challenge our leaders to think much more strategically, much more long-term about this, and much more collaboratively, city, county, school corporations, libraries, et cetera, on what is going to put us in the best position 5 or 10 years down the road. What our surrounding community is going to be doing. As Jen mentioned earlier, we have a very a big concern for me, which is a decrease of population happening right now in Monroe County for the first time in our history. We're losing population, particularly population of working age people that will pay local income taxes. We ranked in the latest Indiana Business Research Center's analysis, which was just released a couple of months ago. Monroe County ranked dead last in population growth. We were negative. We lost more population than any other place in Indiana. So that's not something to really be proud of. And if we raise income taxes, it's not really going to help us out a lot. So we need to be looking at what other surrounding communities are going to be doing, because if we raise taxes here and they don't raise taxes in Greene County or Owen County or Lawrence County or Morgan County, what do you think is going to happen? Our workers are going to leave even faster to those communities because it's, number one, lower cost of living with housing, and taxes will be lower there. So, you know, I really applaud all of our elected officials for their thoughtfulness in how we deal with these challenges. As I mentioned, these are extraordinary times. We have to be all working together across the community, putting past differences aside, and coming together and working on this head on. The business community wants to be a partner in that, and we will be there every step of the way to help achieve long-term success for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Alexis Harmon, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for Monroe County Community School Corporation. Thank you so much for including us in this panel discussion. And I just hearing all of the comments that people have about the importance of education in a community and the community's vitality. Of course, MCCSE is proud of the excellent work we've done to educate our students and are very concerned about the impacts related to Senate Bill 1. This will impact any of our funds related to taxes, so that's our operations fund as well as our referenda fund. We're still analyzing the impacts and what that means. Right now, we're looking at probably $17 million in losses over the next 3 years. In addition to those financial losses, SB1 also puts in some stipulations related to referenda. As you know, in MCCSC, we are so grateful for our community to say education is important, and we're willing to spend money on that and to increase our taxes so that we can have excellent education. So we have referenda here. But starting in 2028, according to Senate Bill 1, we will start sharing referenda funds with charter schools. They have also changed to that any referenda-related question has to be in a general election, so it would have to be in November. We can no longer run referenda in May. So those are two things that we're also looking at as we go forward. we're really in our discussions very much focused on how do we continue to provide the level of excellent service that we do to our students and continue to deliver. That's of the utmost importance for us. We're looking at areas of efficiency. We're looking at, is there anywhere we have a duplication of services? Those are those kinds of things. We're looking at centralized programs and services, trying to keep any kinds of efficiency movements away from the classroom, away from impacts directly related to students. And so those are conversations that we're having. We really want that to be a collaborative discussion across our school corporation, with our families, with our staff, with our teachers union, both MCA and our AFSCME, our support staff union as well. So that's the work that we're really doing now. We're also, I know we're here to talk about Senate Bill 1, we're also looking at the budget, House Bill 1001 as well. Our other fund, that is our education fund, is really related to teacher salaries and wages. And to speak a little bit to Mr. Spoonmore's comment about people living in our community and growth in our community, that funding is our state tuition, and it's a per student amount, and we have a decrease in student enrollment, but also now with the forecast for the state budget, we anticipate that per pupil allotment won't be as great as it was. They were predicting a 2% increase, but we think now it'll be less than that. So we're kind of experiencing it in a variety of ways, and really anticipating some significant budget cuts that we feel prepared to deal with, but it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, and we're going to need everybody in the innovation and creation of our full corporation and our community. Thank you.
Hi, Talisha Kopic on behalf of Downtown Bloomington, Inc. We represent downtown businesses, and thank the city and the mayor, all the county folks for coming together to address this issue as a community. It's mind-boggling, really. It's just a mess, and there's so many pieces to this puzzle that affects all of us in different ways. Now's a challenging time. Our downtown businesses are talking about, so many unknowns at the federal level, and tariffs and supply, and this Senate bill, really just adds to that uncertainty now at the state and the local level, just making it difficult to plan and to act. We know it means less resources for our local government, but in the end, I think we all still want to take care of our community. We need to maintain our infrastructure, ensure public safety, have a place we're all proud to call home. We rely on our local governments for help with the basics, and those cost money and time and resources. So I appreciate all the professionals in this room and working together, and what other kind of tools are out there that we can address some of these many needs. It's so sad to think that we all kind of survived COVID, and now we're going through all of this. So big hugs to everyone, because I think it's that time that we need that, and a lot of smart people working together.
All right, those hugs are going to be needed when we have to crunch these numbers. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and take questions from the press. So if you can just identify yourself, we'll field it to whoever you would like to answer.
Donnie Burgess with WFIU. We've talked a lot about there's a lot of analysis work that's going to have to be done post and everything. There's a lot of figuring out. But over the last few months, and I'm looking at Peter here for this, the county council has already had to make some tough choices with things like sheriff pay. There was a discussion last night about health department salary things. Can you speak a little bit to how this has already started to impact some decisions about employment, salary, things of that nature?
That's a great question. And for those of you that didn't hear the question, how has local government already been taking action as news of this has been trickling down? The early versions of this bill were frightening. They were absolutely frightening. And so at the county level, we started taking actions to say, until we have more certainty, and I think that's probably the biggest risk here, is the uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. until we have more certainty, we're going to pause any new job creations. And so, as president of the Personnel Administration Committee, I wanted to make really sure that we were forecasting to our staff, we are taking this incredibly seriously. Monroe County employs over 800 employees, and we wanted to make sure that we were saying we value retaining you. We value the service you're providing to the citizens of Monroe County, and we want to make sure that we're not making or taking steps now that in 5-10 months we're not going to be able to pay for. You can go back and look at the long-term finance committee meetings where a lot of these steps were talked about in public to say we need to be really, really cautious, particularly on the personnel lines, to make sure that whatever we're going to invest in now, we need to make sure that we can look at later. And so the two examples that you brought up, you hear us on the county council dais talking very much about this, saying, we value what's happening in public safety. We value what's happening in public health, but we want to make absolutely sure that if we're making an investment today, that we can pay for it in 10 months.
Dave.
Hello, I'm Dave Askins with the Beachfront Bulletin. Mayor Thompson already in her remarks gave what I think would be the response to any question I might ask about plans to actually raise the income tax. So I want to focus instead on an existing commitment of City of Bloomington local income tax. It's a 5-year commitment for close to $4 million. And at least one person in the room, John Connell, will recognize exactly what that commitment is. It's to Bloomington Transit, and the city's expectation is that Bloomington Transit will focus with that money on developing an east-west corridor, transportation corridor for rapid transportation So, first question is, it's only a 5-year commitment and goes through 2027. So, I assume that the city would live up to its commitment that it put in the interlocal agreement through 2027. But after that, is that amount now on the table? And if it's not on the table, and the city wants to continue to fund Bloomington Transit at roughly around $4 million a year, would the city consider shifting the expected focus from the east-west corridor to instead helping to support transportation for the public schools?
So the question for those who didn't hear is around the existing lit funds that that the city has, and as you heard, they're all being restructured. What I can say, which will not make you happy in the detail that you're looking for, Dave, is that that things like public transportation directly impact people's cost of living. And so when we're looking at what we are and are not going to fund with lit funds and potentially increasing lit funds, my administration is going to look for the funding that will support what we are aiming to do overall in the city. And one of the most critical things is to decrease the wage gap that we have. We have enormous wage disparity, and making things more affordable for people to live here is key, because that's the only way we're gonna get a vibrant community. We have to have great public education. The schools have no way to increase their income like the county and the city do. This bill really leaves them behind. And if we want to be recruiting top businesses to our community, I would say it's very short-sighted to give relatively small tax cuts to small businesses and discourage people from living in communities by increasing income tax. This is really a way to make small cuts for a few people, and then have people that really can't afford it carry the weight. And that's exactly what's coming out of the State House right now. Is public transportation a priority? Absolutely. I think to get a thriving community with the population that we need, we've got to have a vibrant public transportation company running here. We also have other priorities, so we're really going to have to balance all of these priorities.
Todd Simmons from WRTV. Two-part question. What does it say about the bill that there is a standing room only crowd who wants to hear from you about what you're going to do? And how does this reaffirm the commitment of everybody at the table to try and maintain the quality of life here in Bloomington, Monroe County for everybody here?
Well, I think what you see at the table is that that really every leader that we asked to be here is here. And had we invited more, they would have probably said yes, but it becomes a little bit cumbersome to have that many people on a panel. We're missing our library system here, right? That's going to have impacts as well. This is an unprecedented experience, especially with what we're seeing on the federal level. My commitment is to work with the partners at this table and those that are not at this table. And I think the standing room only crowd here represents probably just a very small portion of the people that are concerned about what's happening. So this is really all hands on deck. As several people mentioned, the bill has passed. There are tweaks that can be made, and when I was spending time a couple weeks ago at the State House advocating against this bill, what I kept being told is, if it's wrong, we'll fix it in a couple of years. Well, a couple of years is too late, right? But your advocacy and your communication to your reps really still does make a difference, even though we're going to have to pivot now.
Let me just the point that I made earlier, I think, is also important to point out here, that the people in this room are also the stakeholders and the ones that are going to be crafting the innovative solutions. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's multiple elected officials sitting in the audience: the assessor, the auditor, the treasurer. We have people from those different departments sitting in this room, and we also have other county council members. And I think the weight of the decisions that will need to be made eventually is part of the commitment of this community to serve the residents. And you think about what's happening on the county level, that means not only filling potholes in our roads and making sure our bridges are stable, but also making sure that our health is intact, that the water is clean that you're drinking, that the food you're eating at the restaurants is clean, and also that our justice system is intact. This legislature just cut one of our courts. That's going to impact the way that we do justice in this community, and we want to make sure that as we're moving forward, we're keeping those things as intact as possible so that we're providing quality services to citizens here in Monroe County.
Thank you. I just want to add to the sentiment up here. I mean, the original question asked about what does it mean that there's standing room only in this room right now? And I think a piece of what that means is that the effects of this, I mean, it affects everybody in the community. Like, potential cuts are going to affect everybody, whether or not you've benefited from this bit of property tax savings. And, you know, I think about my own property tax savings. I go, okay, so if I save that maximum $300, how much more might I spend in other places, even if you exempt the potential of income tax increases? And just think about potential loss of service. I have 2 kids in public schools right now. What kind of loss of service are they going to get that I, as a parent, might have to fill in other ways? And that kind of thing affects everybody in one way or another, because we all use public services some way in our lives. We traveled here using streets, using sidewalks, you know, however it is that you got here, using the public bus system. You have all benefited from city and local services today. And we just don't know at this point what the details of those changes are actually going to look like. So that's the message. Standing room only, it affects everybody at every level of our community right now.
And if I could add something too, I think a lot of times it's easy to say, oh, well, that's just Bloomington. That's just Bloomington that's talking about it. This extends beyond the room here. We had economic developers from across the state raising concerns about this bill. There were teachers, public safety, others that were raising concerns. And so this really goes beyond all of us just here.
I'll say too, Monroe County is not like surrounding communities. We are a high quality of life community. We are larger than other counties. We have a bigger tax base. We have more resources than other counties. But it's going to be hard to find counties like us to model. We will have to come up with our own solutions. And frankly, my bottom line as commissioner, and I hope not to sound too grim when I say this, I want to prevent people from dying. Because the level of cuts we're looking here and the level of essential services that are affected by these cuts, it's really drastic and it's really grim and it's very serious. And so when I talk about a high quality of life county, we have to maintain what we are used to. We have to maintain opportunities for our kids. But at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that people don't die from these cuts. And it's going to be very difficult because federal government is governing by fiat right now. We have things announced that are not planned, and they're taken off the table 3 days later. We have a university that's faced almost close to $1 billion in cuts right now. And again, none of this was anticipated. And so we are essentially policymaking on a sea that is in a basically a terrible storm, the perfect storm. Where we have the wind, the waves, and we don't know when that weather is going to change. It's not going to change potentially for 4 years. And so we have to call upon our state officials as well to come back into session and to help out our local communities because the local communities cannot do it alone. We need that state partnership and we need that federal partnership.
We have about a little over 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we're vetting other questions from the press.
Can I ask the same question, but in a slightly more boring way? So, isn't SB1 an opportunity to drive cross-collaboration across different taxing units that maybe we should have done already, but now we have an excuse because we have this stress, and we can say, because of this stress, we now need to have the city and the county IT departments get closer together and collaborate. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the city is building a new website right now. The county is also building a new website. I look at that and I think, well, why don't we ask Greg Crone and Rick Dietz to get in a room and figure out how they can conserve some resources and capitalize on the fact that we have this great geographic proximity and IT is surely politically neutral. I mean, why aren't we taking this as an opportunity to say, let's collaborate across taxing units in a way that is unprecedented?
Thanks for the question, Dave. I think that while we are, I believe I speak for everyone, while we really love collaboration and we do a lot of it on the ground, the complexities of essentially Unigov is what you're what you may be alluding to. First of all, it's been outlawed at the state, so we already have regulations about not doing that extensively. But I'll just speak to one of the issues that I have been trying to pull apart since I got into office, which is building permits. And just getting those two systems to talk to one another, when we do it and do it well, it's going to be a dream. But mine is not the first administration that's worked on this. And so getting these systems to be one system, getting increased collaboration, I'll tell you that those two IT departments do talk and they do collaborate. And so there's lots of this going on behind the scenes. But I think to believe that we could form Unigov without the opportunity to actually form Unigov is a little short-sighted.
Can I add something? Policy making works best when no one's holding a gun to your head. And so I think that this is a distraction. This is a layer of trying to figure out what we have to do, again, on shifting sands. at the same time while we were looking forward to working and collaborating in other areas. And so this adds a distraction to our plates that we did not need, that we didn't ask for, and frankly, that was not needed.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of echo that a little bit in that a stressful environment is not one that is really optimized for collaboration. So this is this very stressful fiscal environment. And that makes conversations hard, even if you're within your own body, much less across bodies, kind of looking at different priorities that each of those individual bodies have. So it may force that collaboration, but is it going to be the best type of collaboration? And then secondly, there's also a difference in, say, philosophical collaborations versus nuts and bolts collaborations. And I think that we've kind of worked on philosophical collaborations for a long time, and the nuts and bolts, as Mayor Thompson said, is a little bit more challenging to do.
Let's take this question in the back.
Hi, Skip Daly, South Central Indiana News. Councilmember Iverson, you mentioned during your comments, rest assured, we'll get through this together, and you were talking about this brand of collaboration that is happening now. Is that perhaps a hidden silver lining that this new synergy that has been forced upon you can help local government learn to do more with less?
I think it's realism. We've been given dealt a hand from the state government, and increasingly, as Commissioner Madeira mentioned, the federal government, that statutorily we need to work with. So we can adopt a position of woe is me, the sky is falling, or we can say we've got some serious elected official players in this room who know this like the back of their hand. If you are going to craft a team in the county government to handle this situation, you would want the people sitting in this room in that team. And I think that I'm not being Pollyannish. I think that should give people a good degree of optimism. I also want to point out that one of the earlier questions was, this is standing room only. We've got law enforcement, fire protection. We've got multiple taxing units sitting right next to each other. I'm very purposely sitting between two city officials. And I think that speaks volumes to what this community is prepared to do to, come and meet this challenge.
Thank you.
Well, with all these metaphors about change, shifting sands, perfect storm, how are you all collectively trying to take a breath and, get your feet under you as you take on a challenge that, in your own words, is this unprecedented?
So I think we're in a time where there is no stop and take a breath. This team has been running pretty hard since the State House has been in session, and with the shifting sands on the federal level, I think I speak for all of us. We're working some long days, and we're doing it for you, our residents, so that we can get you the information that you need, and we can advocate on your behalf. And this is my invitation to all of you to stay informed. Thank you for being here today. To please stay in touch with your state legislators. If you need more information, I know these handouts are complex. They're complex because the bill's complex. We will do our best to boil things down into really palatable information as we move forward, especially as we understand the implications. And my door and my email is open. Our phones are open. I'm hearing from constituents about this as people are realizing that this has come to pass now. And I think I based on the response we got to this, I think we'll probably do another one of these in the future to help people informed. So thank you all so much for your time. Appreciate you being here. Thanks to the city and county teams, school system, and business community for being here, and especially Eric for the heavy lifting on translation. Have a great day.